You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. Get ready to enjoy a special program because we're doing something quite different today. There won't be any Inside the Headlines or any Surrealism Corner, and even Fighting Words will be changed. The entire program will be given over to the conversation, which will be with Elizabeth Holtzman, former four-term Congresswoman from New York, who famously served on the Judiciary Committee during its Watergate hearings, as well as making her mark on the Budget Committee and on women's rights and issues affecting aging citizens, citizens of color, immigrants, the disadvantaged, and also on the Vietnam War. She co-founded the Congressional Caucus for Women, she led the fight for the ERA, and her recently published latest book, The Case for Impeaching Trump, has reminded the public just how brilliant she is. This conversation struck us as so special in its wide span of issues and its fresh, bold strategies regarding the impeachment of Trump that for the first time we decided to devote the entirety of the program to a single conversation. By the end of this program, I think you will understand why. So let's dive in. Oh, Liz, welcome to the program.
Thank you. I'm so delighted to be on it.
Oh, it's a pleasure, it's an honor, and it's a personal happiness to have you here. I want to get to the important new book, The Case for Impeaching Trump, which from you, who served, of course, on the Watergate committee, is a very crucial document these times. But I want to get to some other things, and I want to sort of tick those off first, if it's okay with you.
Sure.
First of all, I just have to point out for the audience who hasn't made that connection, think of this headline, folks. Youngest person ever to serve in Congress, just elected, woman, considered a wild-eyed outsider, a radical, unseated, a long-standing, real power machine Democrat. Everybody thinks of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and actually it was Liz Holtzman, wasn't it?
Yes, but I wasn't the youngest woman, Robin. I'm the youngest person. I was the youngest woman ever elected.
Yes.
And I didn't know that at the time. And yes, I did take on the Brooklyn machine. And yes, I did take on a 50-year incumbent who opposed the ERA, bottled it up for years in the House Judiciary Committee.
Manny Seller.
Yes, I did. Manny Seller. And yes, I did take on the chair of the House Judiciary Committee, Dean of the House of Representatives, Democratic Party, and the Vietnam War.
Yes, you did. And I campaigned for you. You were not running in my district. Abzug was running in my district. And of course I campaigned for Bella, because otherwise she would be mad at me. And you did not want her mad at you. But I went out to Brooklyn. In fact, I was a Reform Democrat. I ran the year you ran. I even ran for county committee and lost hugely. Wow. But I went out and campaigned for you because I was a Reform Democrat, and you won. And it was such a thrill. Wow. Did you drop a note to AOC and say hello from one to the other?
Well, I tried to call her. It's impossible to reach her, but she was kind enough. I saw her on the floor of the House of Representatives. We had a nice talk, and then she was very, very kind to do a tweet that said something to the effect of, "Before me, there was she," referring to me. So that was very sweet of her. But there are a lot of similarities. And, my own feeling is that we need the energy of young people, and not only the energy, but the idealism and the belief that you can do anything, that sort of sense of invincibility. And I'm going to break all the barriers. And that's the kind of, we need those people. Maybe we don't need everybody to be like that, but we definitely need people like that who are willing to take on the big obstacles and, come what may, stand up for what they believe to be justice. And so, it's exciting to see her there. And of course, it brings back vivid memories to me about that race because no one gave me a chance of winning.
Right.
Nobody.
Oh, God. Emmanuel Seller was, just impregnable. I mean, he was considered, nobody could come near him, let alone topple him. It was the machine itself, the Democratic machine, and the reformers were like, yeah, sure. And then the idea of women, oh, please. When you got in the House, you also were the very first to start what became the Congressional Women's Caucus, weren't you?
Yes, actually, I did that together with Congresswoman Margaret Heckler, a Republican from Massachusetts.
Right.
We thought it was really important to have it bipartisan because there's so many issues that divide us, people. But we knew on women's issues there's so much that could unite us if we would focus on the common ground. And actually, it worked. The caucus is still there. It's still bipartisan.
Right.
It still does important things for women. I was very, it should have happened years before, but women were still feeling their way. When this caucus was formed, women were concerned about being laughed at for dealing with women's issues. It took a lot of persuasion to get all the women to come on board, but they did, all of them. So it was important.
No, it was considered a crazy radical thing that there would be a Congressional Women's Caucus at the time, I remember. And, and yet virtually all the legislation that's been introduced between then and now has been introduced by or definitely backed by the caucus. So it's been it's a very important voice. Without it, that would not have happened. That was the seat at the table.
Correct. And it gave us clout that we didn't have otherwise. It was a way of getting to know people and know people across the aisle. Yeah. But it was also a way of, we had tiny numbers then, 100. That was unthinkable. We had fewer than 20 congresswomen at that time. And when I was there, at points, there were no women at all in the U.S. Senate. So it was a little tiny band of women who were elected. And being in the caucus definitely expanded our clout, our power, our visibility.
Right. That was the plucky wench period. I always think of that as, you plucky wenches. Very, very different now. Still not parity, and nowhere near parity, but at least different. At least the floor of the House begins to look like the population of the country.
Yeah, and they're still not paying attention to women. I mean, it was fascinating. One of the important, really, really, really important advances that the caucus made, and I think this was really triggered by, I think at that time, Congresswoman and then Senator Barbara Mikulski, and that was to get the FDA to do drug testing on not just on men, but on women when they did
still not happening.
Tests. And it's, and so that got through and the FDA issued these rules. But now I see when they're testing animals,
right? They
don't test female animals. They don't test on female animals. So what's happened? I mean, even though the protocols go into effect and everybody acknowledges it needs to be done, that was done in the early 90s. It's almost 30 years later, and they're still not paying attention.
That's right. The CDC announced some years ago that it would test all the way down to cellular level because there are cellular differences between female and male, and yet that seems not to have been put into practice, and there's real differences. I mean, so
of course,
and
this could be a life and death matter.
Yes,
I'm sure it is.
Yeah, exactly.
This is not just political correctness.
Well,
we're talking about life and death.
That's right. We know it was over the heart attack scandal because
course.
Women present differently, and it's basic research. It's maddening. It's absolutely maddening. So now also you chaired the Immigration and Refugees Subcommittee.
Yes.
So your hair must be on fire these days.
My heart is breaking, and I was actually appointed to the advisory committee to the Department of Homeland Security.
Yeah. And
I resigned when I found out about the program of separating children from parents at the borders last July. I resigned.
Yeah.
That means July, I think, 2017, I resigned. I was appalled. I am appalled. I mean, and nobody's been punished for this. People should go to jail. We're talking about kidnapping children. We're talking about permanent mental damage to them. We're talking about damage to the parents. We're talking about a life completely disrupted. And life just goes on here in our government as though nothing serious has happened. They still haven't reunited all the children with the parents. And to me, this is it's a beyond an outrage. It's one of the very worst things the United States government has done. I mean, it's a good thing there was a public outcry. But frankly, where was the outcry within the administration? Why weren't all the people in the Homeland Security Department up in arms on this, refusing to carry out these orders? And the other thing I want to say that's so appalling to me about Trump's policy is that I was there when there was the boat people exodus from Vietnam. The United States took 750,000 refugees from Indochina. Yeah. Okay. Basically, there wasn't an outcry in this country. There might have been one or two incidents in a couple of places, but those refugees were completely absorbed. We took 600,000 Cubans from Cuba.
Right.
Those refugees were absorbed. We took hundreds of thousands of Jews from the Soviet Union. And now we're in a panic over 2,000 children or 10,000 families that come here that represent no threat to America. What's happened to us? And not only are we afraid of immigrants, which I don't recall that we were afraid the way we are, as though the country's shaking in its boots, but we were leaders in the resettlement issue of the Indo-Chinese refugees.
Yes.
We were leaders. So we knew that if we took the leadership, we could solve the problem. And we did. What we did was we persuaded, instead of what Trump is doing now to get Mexico to push people away, we went to all the countries surrounding Vietnam and said to those countries that wanted to push the boat people right back out to sea, we said, please don't push the boat people out back to sea. We'll make sure they'll be resettled and absorbed. And then there was a big conference in Geneva. All the nations in the world got together, and every country took some number, whether it was a few or many. There was almost total resettlement. It was one of the most successful programs of its kind in history. We were the leaders, the United States of America. And in part we were leaders because we understood we were responsible. We had been a major villain in the whole issue of the Vietnam War, and we took responsibility. We understood the burden of responsibility that we had as a result of that. Look at what's going on in Central America. Didn't we overthrow the government in Guatemala?
Yep.
Didn't we disrupt the governments of El Salvador and Guatemala and Honduras by our fighting against the Contras, by corrupting the military, by preventing liberal governments from doing land distribution and dealing with the issues of poverty? We are as responsible as possible. Will we acknowledge it? No. We want someone else to take the blame. What kind of country, monstrous, have we turned into on these issues? I mean, this is in my own lifetime. We're talking about the difference between 1978 and 2018. We're talking about, 40 years. And what have we become?
Why
have we become?
Why and how do you think this has happened, Liz? I mean,
I don't know. I don't know. Ted Kennedy in the Senate introduced the bill, the Refugee Act of 1980, and on the Senate side, and I introduced it on the House side. And that bill passed in the Senate without a single opposing vote. It had some opposition in the House because the House it wasn't really substantive opposition. It was about whether the House was going to have some say in who was admitted, blah, blah, blah. So here you have this major piece of legislation setting for the first time in the country's history a framework for refugee absorption and admission. And it was also to say, look, we are the Statue of Liberty. We're going to admit refugees. We understand the problem. In America, we make a commitment, a permanent commitment to doing this.
Right.
And that was just not so long ago. And now we've discovered a president who can fool not all the people all the time, but some people all of the time about the danger that refugees pose to us and flame up the fears, the bigotry, the hatred. That's not what made America great. What made America great were all these people, refugees, poor people fleeing for economic opportunity, people who are idealists, wanted to come to America to live here. That's what we had. It was a mix of different people from different parts of the world. But now I think we have a demagogue, and it just shows, too, how easily people are persuaded by the forces of fear and hatred.
Well, he's given them permission to come out from under the rock. I mean, in a sense, some of them have always been there. There's been the Klan, there's been, anti-immigrant flashes here and there. But,
sure.
But it's been a small minority, a vocal minority, and everybody winced and looked in the other direction, even if some of them might secretly have been grumpy or thought that, quote, jobs were being taken away when they weren't, or, gotten paranoid. But he has given permission from the highest office in the land, and so then the word goes out, it's okay to feel, act, and speak this way, and that's just beyond dangerous.
But I also think that it's not only is he giving other people permission, but he's doing it because he himself is saying the racist and the bigoted things.
That's right.
Immigrants don't cause crime.
No,
he knows it's just another one of his big lies. And so he says that, and some people will believe it. Oh, because they don't have immigrants in their own neighborhood, so they don't know that immigrants aren't big crime creators.
And that's what he says. And the Republican Party says and goes along with it as well. I mean, I remember Javits Republicans. I remember Margaret Chase Smith. I remember decent Republicans. I remember Republicans who co-founded things like the Women's Congressional Caucus with you, who would be read out of the party today and considered they should go back to Russia when Russia was also left-wing. We have to take a very brief pause here before we return with Liz Holtzman's analysis of what happened to the Republican Party, what's happening in Congress today, and her strategy for the impeachment of Donald Trump. That's coming right up. Subscribe to this program on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. Follow us on Twitter at WMC Live, like our Facebook page at facebook.com/WMC Live, and visit us at WMCLive.com for more information about our show and our guests.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back to part 2 of my exclusive in-depth conversation with former Watergate panel Congresswoman Liz Holtzman, who is also the author of The Case for Impeaching Trump. What happened to that once great party? Do you know what happened to the Republican Party?
Not really, but I think part of the problem is the big money. I mean, it costs so much to run for office now. You have dark money coming in, Russian money coming in, foreign money coming in, special interest money coming in. And I think also it's sad to say, but Richard Nixon, had a Southern strategy, which was appealing to the racist vote in the South.
Yep.
And the Republicans have really fostered that feeling and built on it. And I think one of the triggers for the immigration policy is they want to keep dark-skinned people out of America.
Sure. Not
just for racist reasons, but because they think poor people, particularly people who've suffered prejudice or discrimination, will vote for the Democrats because Democrats have traditionally, championed people who've been victims of discrimination.
Right.
So this is also an electoral policy.
Oh, yeah, like gerrymandering.
And definitely to keep themselves in power.
Yeah.
That's what they're hoping to do.
Yeah.
And, it's not going to work. It's like putting a finger into the dike. It's not going to work, but it's causing untold hardship, untold misery.
Yeah.
We could begin to solve that problem in El Salvador and Guatemala and Honduras if we wanted to, but we have no interest. This is a man who doesn't understand diplomacy, doesn't understand leadership, and has no interest in solving problems. He just wants a wall. And but there's so many. I mean, having been through the Vietnamese boat people crisis and the resolution of it, we could do so many things. If we could internationalize the problem, get other countries to absorb some of the refugees who are fleeing the conditions in these countries. We haven't tried to do that. And why would anybody help us after we denounce Trudeau in Canada and call other countries names? So that's one thing that we did then, and countries were eager to join with us, but no. So that's one thing we could do. The other thing we could do is do something about the governance and the conditions in these countries. We've done basically nothing, and now Trump wants to cut off all funding for them. So the consequence is that these countries, which have been ravaged by our policies, and to maybe the kindest word you can say, ravaged by U.S. policies, these countries, we take no responsibility and we do nothing about it. If we improve the governance in those countries, create some better conditions for life there, internationalize the problems of refugee absorption, we can make a lot of strides in dealing with this problem. But he can't even conceive of that. And this country's done it before. That's what's so amazing. We did it before.
I know. We've already done it, so we know how to do it if we have the political will,
And the intelligence and and the will. You're absolutely right.
Liz, I want to talk about the book. I have one quick question before then. You're so damn smart, and you have such experience, and you have so many scars from being the first of... you were the first woman elected DA, district attorney in New York City. You were the first woman comptroller. You had 20 as an elected official in government. Why you have such experience and so much knowledgeability? Why aren't you in government? Why don't you run again? We need you. I mean, I know I'm asking a huge sacrifice. I do understand. Right. I do understand. But God damn, every time I hear you talk, I think, why isn't she in government? Bella left us, but you're here. I mean, is it just too much to ask?
Well, the conditions aren't quite the same as they were when I was much younger, and I don't know that I could get elected even if I wanted to do that. I've been down that road. I try to help people as much as I can, whether it was through ideas or working with them or whatever. So I do stay involved, but I hope I can be some kind of voice of sanity and rationality, and also a commitment to justice, because what's the point of our being here if we can't make the world a better place?
Okay. Well, at least you've contributed a huge, important book. Let's get to the book. But I'm still going to sit on your shoulder and whisper in your ear, "Run, Liz! Run,
Thank
Liz!
you.
Run, Liz!" Talk about the case for impeaching Trump. It's a wonderful book, listeners. If you didn't read the Mueller report, if you have time for only one thing on why we're ready to, why this is important, this is the book to read. Liz, talk about the book and why you wrote it. It came out already in January, before the report. It's brilliant. It explains everything in terms you can understand. Talk about why you did it and basically what it is.
Well, I did it because an organization asked me what was the case for impeachment against Trump. That was about this time, maybe even a month or so earlier. And I frankly, while I've been very angry and upset about his policies, I actually had not sat down to put the case together. And they asked me to talk to them about it, prepare a memo and talk to them. And when I sat down to do the memo and to put it in a coherent way, I said, there's really a case here. There's really a case here, and I'm one of the few people in this country that's got the what I call niche expertise on impeachment, because I was involved actually in the impeachment of Richard Nixon.
Yep.
So I know about the process, and we had, in order to vote for impeachment, first we had to study the Constitution, what does the provision mean on impeachment, and then we had to deal with the facts, and then we had to decide what facts warranted impeachment. So I know a lot about that, unfortunately. And also, the Nixon impeachment worked. It's the only time that we had an impeachment process that was based on solid evidence, vast abuse of power, and a bipartisan process. And the president was, I think people don't remember this, as a result of our process, Nixon resigned. We voted for 3 articles of impeachment. Nixon resigned. He was permanently disgraced. We never had a revisionist theory about that. Nope. Everyone acknowledged that the work of the committee was right, the actions were justified, and Nixon became permanently disgraced for his conduct.
Yes.
In addition, people say, well, the politics of impeachment is terrible. Look at what happened during the Clinton impeachment. The Clinton impeachment was partisan. The Clinton impeachment was based on acts that the American people did not, while they were reprehensible without any doubt, these were acts that did not threaten our democracy, that did not threaten anyone's liberties, did not threaten the rule of law. And so the American people never bought into the need for impeachment, the removal of a president who threatened the rule of law. Mm-hmm. But the Nixon impeachment, the American people agreed with the committee's efforts, supported it overwhelmingly, and on top of that, something we didn't know at the outset was that there was a huge Democratic electoral victory in the midterm elections after the impeachment process.
Right.
No one held the Democrats responsible and pointed fingers that you did something bad.
Right.
To the contrary, they said you did something good. You did something good for democracy. You did something good for the country. So too often people who look at the Trump matter say, well, impeachment is dangerous. It divides the country. It'll be bad for the Democrats. Well, I know for sure nobody was thinking about whether there be what the political consequences would be of impeachment, because when we first started, nobody even took a vote count of the House Judiciary Committee. We didn't even know if we had enough votes to vote for impeachment, much less have impeachment in the House or the Senate. So we just started out saying, look, this is a dangerous man, but we don't know what the law is. We don't know what the facts are. We have to put everything together. And if it works out, it'll be like a jury trial. We'll win in the end. But you don't fix a jury trial first.
Right.
You present your evidence. You try to persuade first the committee and then the American people, and that's what happened. So if you fast forward from the Nixon impeachment, which too few people understand or appreciate in terms of either the politics or how we got there, but you go to Trump, you see some things that are, the case for Trump, you see some things that are virtually identical to what Richard Nixon did. So you can build your case for impeachment in part on a precedent that has been well established and that has huge legitimacy and credibility. Mm-hmm. For example, one of the grounds for the impeachment of Richard Nixon was that he authorized pardons to be offered to the Watergate burglars to keep them from talking to the prosecutors and telling the prosecutors about higher-ups who were involved. Mm-hmm. That wasn't the only ground, but that was one of the grounds for impeachment. Go to Donald Trump. He himself said, he himself dangled pardons in public to people who were on trial or who were cooperating with prosecutors, basically suggesting to them that they not cooperate and intimating that they could get a pardon if they refused to cooperate. That is exactly what happened in Watergate.
Correct.
And that is exactly what was the ground for impeachment of Richard Nixon. So you take that. Then you also have Nixon's firing of of the special prosecutor Archibald Cox, because Cox was trying to get the evidence that would be incriminating to Nixon.
Right.
That's actually what triggered the impeachment effort, because the American people said, no, the president can't determine who's going to investigate him or who's going to prosecute him. So the firing of Archibald Cox, special prosecutor, by Nixon was a explicit ground for impeachment, because he was trying to stymie an investigation. Fast forward to Donald Trump. Donald Trump fired Comey.
Correct.
And according to Comey, the evidence is, and according to the Mueller report, the evidence suggests very strongly that this was done to stop Comey from continuing his investigation into Flynn and into Russian interference in our elections and the connection with the Trump campaign.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just a one-shot trying to get rid of somebody, because after he got rid of Comey and Mueller was appointed special prosecutor, Comey was the director of the FBI, so it's not 100% on identical to Nixon, but we have the special prosecutor Robert Mueller. And we see that Trump tried time and time and time again to have Mueller fired, gave orders to have Mueller fired, gave orders through his staff, gave orders to outside people to get Mueller fired. I mean, not to get Mueller fired, sorry, to get Mueller fired and to restrict the investigation into him. This is right out of Nixon. This cannot happen with impunity. So we have two direct grounds. There are other grounds now that, every day almost Trump adds grounds to impeachment. I mean, for example, what he's done just recently, in part of the grounds for his Nixon's impeachment was that he lied to the public that there had been a thorough investigation and that John Dean, his counsel, had done a complete investigation of the Watergate break-in and found that nobody in the White House was involved. Mm-hmm. Now, we know that was a lie, and that lie to the American people, which is designed to cover up his own involvement in criminal conduct, was deemed to be an impeachable offense. Let's fast forward to Donald Trump. This is not in my book because it's very recent. But he is now saying that Mueller, in his report, exonerated him. But that's a lie. Mueller didn't exonerate him. Mueller said, he explicitly said, I can't exonerate him. Yeah. And he explicitly also said that there was evidence, but insufficient evidence to find him guilty or to warrant prosecution for conspiracy. But insufficient evidence to warrant conspiracy prosecution is not insufficient evidence to show enough cooperation with the Russians and interference to permit impeachment. So denying that is also part and parcel of a cover-up, which is so similar to Nixon's, it kind of makes your hair stand on end. And so somebody wrote the playbook for both of them. But anyhow, so we there are other things as well, but these are two very big and important things. Okay. Trying to stop an investigation is not permissible under our Constitution, and that's what Nixon did, got him voted by the House Judiciary Committee to be impeached, and it's certainly what Trump has been doing and still continues to do.
Time for another brief pause before we return with Liz Holtzman's stunning response to a question about what the House should do to Trump and his minions refusing to respond to congressional oversight by stonewalling. It's a response that clears your sinuses and makes you sit up straight. It's one you have not heard before, and it's doable and really important. Coming right up. The Women's Media Center founded in 2005 by Jane Fonda, Gloria Steinem, and myself, is a progressive, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization working to make women visible and powerful in media. You can learn more about the WMC at womensmediacenter.com.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
And we're back with the conversation with an exclusive discussion with Liz Holtzman, veteran of the Watergate hearings all those years ago, and her experience showing the deadly similarities between Nixon and Trump today and what to do going forward. Liz, let me ask a question. Jerry Nadler is my congressperson, and I think he's doing a superb job chairing the committee. When you were sitting on the Watergate Committee, those hearings riveted the nation and did bring the population along with you. I remember being riveted myself day after day and discussing it with everybody I knew. And yes, I'm a news junkie and a political being, but people who weren't were also riveted. So when the judgment came to pass of impeachment, the country was really ready. Pelosi's stand has been wanting to bring the country along, and I understand that, and I've been supporting her on that. But what happens when the power of the committee's subpoena power itself is being blatantly defied by the White House? And they just say, no, we just won't come. We won't come and testify. We won't turn over papers. We won't come. What then? This is clearly something that the committee is facing. What would your counsel be for them to do? To go to court and then be tied up in court?
Well, Nixon refused to give us information,
right?
And we never went to court. We charged him with obstructing the inquiry of the House Judiciary Committee into impeachment, and that was one of the articles of impeachment against him. But I think you make a really important point, Robin, and let me just try to kind of remind your listeners or tell your listeners about what happened during Watergate.
Yes.
First, there was the Senate Watergate Committee that held hearings. It was a special committee that was set up. It was a small committee, 7 people, and it was and it had 2 very distinguished lawyers leading it. They did most of the questioning of witnesses.
Yes.
That's where the public saw John Dean, counsel to the president, for the first time. That's where the American people heard him say, I told the president there was a cancer on the presidency, that hush monies were being paid to the burglars to keep them quiet, that pardons were being offered to them to keep them from cooperating with the prosecution.
Right.
And he said, and Nixon said, I know where we can get more hush money and so forth. Nixon, of course, denied that. And then a whole host of other people were presented, and that committee also uncovered the fact of White House tapes.
Yes.
They uncovered that.
God, it was so dramatic.
So, right. Then when the House Judiciary Committee started its impeachment hearings, it basically operated behind closed doors, but it was okay because the American people had already been educated
yes.
about the basic facts through the Senate Watergate Committee hearing. And our final debate, however, was public, where we debated the articles of impeachment. That was in public, and the American people could see and could hear and listen and decide for themselves. We have not had, because the Republicans control both the House and the Senate for the 2 years up to January, we didn't have public hearings on what happened in the Trump Tower meeting where what I call, Don Jr. met with the Russians.
Right.
We didn't have hearings about Paul Manafort's behavior. He wasn't called before before any committee to testify.
They didn't go after
Don
evidence.
Don McGahn wasn't called to testify. So all of this, Jared Kushner wasn't called to testify. All of this was behind closed doors, and the public was excluded. So the public doesn't really know the facts of what happened.
Yes.
This is a big challenge, and it's a big challenge because if Donald Trump knows one thing, and he doesn't know too much, but he knows about TV and the power of TV.
Yes.
And he won through TV, and he definitely doesn't want his critics on TV.
No.
So he's trying everything he can to make sure that anybody who has something to testify against him will be excluded from television and shut them out from testifying. I think two things have to happen, in my opinion. One is the House really needs to set up a mechanism more like the Senate, a small committee. You can't ask questions by 38 people on a committee. It just doesn't become a coherent process to elicit information for the public when you're trying to educate the public. Mm-hmm. So I think that's one thing. But they've got to get the story of the Mueller report out to the American people.
Yeah.
And that's a big challenge. So they can do it in a variety of ways. They can call the witnesses. The witnesses aren't going to come. My view is, it was someone else suggested, I thought it was an excellent suggestion, to use the inherent power of contempt and impose substantial fines on anybody who violates the subpoena. So I would impose a fine if Don McGahn is voted in contempt. I'd impose a fine of $10,000, $20,000 a day, and I'd levy on that fine after 10 days. I mean, I don't know how much money he's got in the bank, but I don't know how long he can go with owing that kind of money to the government. So I think substantial fines, and maybe even more, have to be levied on these people. I think, in addition, you have to figure out, okay, so you can't get those people, what's Plan B? I mean, maybe Plan B is having Mueller read out parts of that report so the American people hear. We could not exonerate him, and the questions have to be such that you can get sound bites. I know Mueller doesn't like that, but maybe question Mueller. Did you say you could exonerate Donald Trump on obstruction of justice? No. So you're saying you could not exonerate him on obstruction of justice? Yes. Okay, so I'm saying those kinds of questions, get that out to the American people. Then maybe you can also have him go through some of the key, the 10 or 11 key counts of obstruction so people can understand that. But I think you've got to get witnesses, if you can, live witnesses, and if you can't, then you've got to substitute for it, whether it's Mueller, whether it's having readings of parts of the report, whether it's trying somehow in some other ways to translate the narrative of the Mueller report to the American people. That has to be done. Maybe bring in people from Hollywood or others who can figure out. No, I'm serious. Because I think it's something that's vital. How do we educate the American people in a relatively short period of time as to what is in the Mueller report? It's 440 pages, and most Americans aren't going to read it.
And you don't think going to court is the answer, because it also. I
mean, it could take a very long time, and primarily, I'm not opposed to it. Although I think it's kind of beneath the dignity of the House of Representatives in an impeachment hearing. That's huge power, and court shouldn't be able to rule as to what we're entitled to get. But I mean, if that's the only,
I see your point.
I think I don't think it's necessary. But on the other hand, maybe they'll get the information, but it'll take a very long time.
No,
I tell you something. I'll tell you something else. Let's just take the case of McGahn. McGahn is the John Dean of Trump. McGahn is the one who was told by Trump to fire Mueller and so forth. I mean, the other thing is you could have, just to interrupt myself, you could have Mueller read the parts of his report that deal with McGahn, where he said McGahn testified this and this and this.
Yes.
And so there you have it. I mean, that's maybe another kind of way. But I'm not smart enough to figure out how to present this.
That's pretty smart.
Well, but I think you need people who are public relations types who can figure out how to dramatize and present on television.
I mean, in the broader picture,
this kind of thing.
In the broader picture, this is so frightening because it cuts directly to the constitutional powers that Congress has.
Correct.
I mean,
But Congress has to have. But the thing is, there has to be a strategy, a plan B, and they were waiting. In my opinion, this was a mistake. They were waiting for the Mueller report. Congress was waiting for the Mueller report because the Mueller report was going to solve all their problems. Well, we knew, the people who rewrote the special prosecutor, my bill that I wrote, the special prosecutor legislation, lapsed. And you had people who were on Clinton's staff who wrote new regulations, and they wanted to they wanted to put the Attorney General back in, a political figure. We wanted the Attorney General out. We wanted no politics involved at all in the actions of the special prosecutor. They put politics back in. So my view is, you don't know what the Attorney General is going to do, and you don't even know really what Mueller's going to do. So do your own thing. They could have started in January. They didn't. They waited for the report. Now they have to figure out a grand strategy. Let's assume we're not going to get these live witnesses. How are we going to dramatize the Mueller report to the American people? And let's figure out a way to do that and do it. And some of those witnesses, by the way, will have to show up because, for example, Michael Flynn, the judge, he hasn't been sentenced yet. The judge, he was somebody they dangled a pardon in front of him, and he's somebody who was very close at one point to Trump. The judge said to Flynn, the last time he was in court, the judge accused him of treason and basically said, I'm throwing you in the clink. He decided he'd made a mistake when he said he'd committed treason. And he said, but I'm going to sentence you when your cooperation is finished. Just stop and think what the judge is going to think if Michael Flynn does not testify before Congress. He has to come and testify. They need to call him.
Yes,
that's just one example. There may be some other witnesses that they need to call. They could refuse to come, but Michael Flynn really has
a lot to lose.
He's got a lot to lose, and a lot to think about.
Listen,
I don't know. So there's a lot of stuff that I'm not saying it's easy. I'm making it sound easy. This is one of the most difficult problems that people have to confront now, which is how to get around Donald Trump's. This is the biggest cover-up of all, and the biggest effort to obstruct justice, which is to try to stop the impeachment inquiry from educating the American people. It's very serious. It's not going to be easy to solve, but there are ways, I think, alternative ways. We have to find them, and we have to think outside the box.
Listen, I have two things and only two things to say. One, listeners, you see why you have to read this book. It's called The Case for Impeaching Trump. Now, either run out and get it at a bookstore, or if you can't find a bookstore anymore, you know that you can get it online. In e-format, in print format, in any format you can lay your hands on. And two, Holtzman, you see why you should run for office again. Oh, my God. This is an in-depth analysis that I haven't heard anywhere else. It's tactical, it's strategic, and I'm so deeply grateful that you shared it with us. I love you madly, 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 madly. Thank you so much for being with us. And thank you for this wonderful brain that you've always had, and it is better than ever. Love you much. Thank you so much for being with us. And keep thinking at this titanic way and level that you do.
Thank you, Robin. I appreciate what you're saying very much. And thank you to your listeners.
One last brief pause now, and we'll return with some fighting words.
For the smartest talk about news, politics, sex, books, religion, race, and more, it's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Audacious, witty, provocative, informative, and fun. It's Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan. Talk radio with a brain.
And welcome back to some fighting words. Not necessarily mine, though, not this time. because I became so inarticulate with rage on hearing Trump say he would do it all over again. He would gladly accept aid from a foreign government if it would help him win over a rival and retain power. And if that was against the law, well, then the law was wrong. I began to sputter and blubber in fury. At such moments, it's preferable to let one's betters speak for one. You might recognize words in these 2 excerpts. They're astonishingly applicable. You might have to think of updating them in terms of, well, environmental damage at sea and in terms of fires, and when speaking of armies, think of cyberbots, but the message is identical in both excerpts. For example, in the first excerpt, when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce the people under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government. The history of the present is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his party to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, and he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructed the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither. He has erected a multitude of new offices, and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing tariffs on us without our consent, for abolishing our most valuable laws and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments. He has abdicated government. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time inciting large armies of foreign mercenaries, or cyber hacks, to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny, already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy, totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. And this excerpt, as if he had been privy with foresight into the Russian probe and even hired trolls manufacturing false news. This speech, quote, "Against the insidious wiles of foreign influence, I conjure you to believe me, fellow citizens, the jealousy of a free people ought to be constantly awake, asking, how many opportunities are afforded foreign influence to tamper with domestic factions, to practice the art of seduction, to mislead public opinion, to influence all public councils." The first quote, as you might have noticed, is from the Declaration of Independence, written by Thomas Jefferson. The second quote is from the Farewell to the Troops, written by George Washington. Those are Thomas Jefferson's fighting words. Those are George Washington's fighting words. Humbly, those are my fighting words. Add yours on Twitter, and remember to tag us at WMC Live and use the hashtag Fighting Words. And that's our show for today. You can follow me on Twitter at @TheRobinMorgan and on Facebook at facebook.com/TheRobinMorgan. Check out my blog at robinmorgan.net and find my latest book, Dark Matter, wherever books are sold. Opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the Women's Media Center. Here's the family for our show. Executive producer as well as founding and sustaining sponsor, Regina K. Scully. WMC president and co-executive producer of this program, Julie Burton. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us. Join us again next time on Women's Media Center Live.